Joe Pickett Season 3 would have continued the Paramount Plus CJ box adaptation, though sadly, the future of the cult neo-western doesn't look hopeful. Joe Pickett began as a streaming exclusive for Spectrum, the cable company, before being moved to Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus is now the home of Joe Pickett for Season 2, and the adaptation of the popular series of novels has been praised for its realistic take on the modern western. Writer C.J. Box has found success with his neo-western novels, 2 series of which have been adapted for television, including Joe Pickett. One of Box's other series has been adapted into ABC's Big Sky. There are 24 novels in the Joe Pickett series, which means there are plenty of mysteries and characters to bring to the screen as game warden Joe Pickett, Michael Dornan, is responsible for solving all manner of mysteries in the wilderness of Wyoming, any of which could have been tapped into for Joe Pickett Season 3. Joe Pickett ended with Season 2. Joe Pickett has been cancelled. Joe Pickett Season 2 was a lot more brutal than even the first season. Since it adapted a book later in the series, the story was one where Joe was solidified in his spot, but he still managed to make mistakes, and that hit hard in the second season. By the time the finale rolled around, Joe had a lot to answer for, and, to his credit, he faced his fears and admitted to his shortcomings. Joe ends up teaming with the Grimm twins and fights off the bad guys to save Marissa's life. However, there was then a huge twist at the end. After the Grimms help Joe vanquish the villains, they disappear without a trace. However, in the finale's final scene, a legion of anti-government protesters show up on Main Street, yelling that they want justice for the Grimms. April's mother, Jeannie Keeley, Leah Gibson, is among them before she mocks her daughter and marches on. It seems like Joe Pickett was setting up Jeannie as a future antagonist. J. Box's Joe Pickett series of novels includes 24 stories, so there is still ample source material for the streaming series to draw from. The first season adapted the first and third of the Joe Pickett novels. The second season adapted the 8th novel published. That means there are still plenty of stories for Joe Pickett Season 3 to adapt if another network or streaming platform picked up the rights from Paramount Plus to renew the show for another season. Why Joe Pickett was cancelled after Season 2. There won't be new Joe Pickett episodes on Paramount, plus the most recent Joe Pickett Season 3 news arrived on October 31, 2023, when Paramount confirmed that Joe Pickett had been cancelled, via Deadline. With the Season 2 finale in July 2023, viewers have been expecting a Joe Pickett Season 3 renewal, so the news the show wouldn't continue was especially disheartening. It's clear that Paramount Plus has faith in the show since the streamer picked it up from Spectrum, and with the resurgence of the Western genre thanks to shows like Yellowstone, Joe Pickett could have continued to grow in popularity. Because the series was originally broadcast as part of Spectrum's lineup before making the move to Paramount Plus, it was always a slight gamble for the streaming platform, and it seems that the viewership numbers weren't strong enough to continue with Joe Pickett Season 3. As for the reason for the cancellation, author C.J. Box said it was disappointing, via Joe Pickett's final season reception. Critics loved the series with a 100% perfect Rotten Tomatoes score. Michael Dorman as Joe Pickett standing outside a building. Joe Pickett is a rare television series with a 100% Rotten Tomatoes score for its first and second seasons. Critics praised it, but there wasn't a single critic on the tomato meter who gave it a poor score. The show did have a lower popcorn meter score though, with 76% in Season 1 and 80% in Season 2. One audience reviewer wrote, as for the critics, Nina Metz of the Chicago Tribune wrote, "It's a show that likely benefits from the long tail of Yellowstone's popularity, but for audiences drawn instead to a slow-burning mystery. On those terms, it's modestly absorbing, perfectly fine, tick above average TV viewing." It seems that most critics were on the same page with the series. With Ricky Valero from Ready Steady Cut writing, rarely does a second season take such a massive step forward, but with Joe Pickett, it felt like things mattered a little more.